In a world where entertainment is viewed as mindless diversion, only good for momentary distraction, you are about to enter a new world, and you will never view entertainment in the same way again. This is Popcorn Theology.
Welcome, movie lovers and theology nerds, to Popcorn Theology, where we examine films for where they align with the greatest story and our greatest storyteller, discussing what to receive, reject, and redeem for common ground, fruitful conversation, and mindful movie consumption. And I'm Law Dog Eric.
And I'm your Huckleberry, Maddie. And today, if you haven't guessed already, we are looking at Tombstone. It is directed by George, I'm gonna butcher this, Cosmatos?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Okay, there we go. And written by Kevin Jarre and starring Kurt Russell, Val Kilmer, Sam Elliott, Bill Paxton, Powers Booth, and Michael Biehn. Wyatt Earp and his brothers, Morgan and Virgil, have left their gunslinger ways behind them to settle down and start a business in the town of Tombstone, Arizona. While they aren't looking to find trouble, trouble soon finds them when they become the targets of the ruthless cowboy gang. Now, together with Wyatt's best friend, Doc Holliday, the brothers pick up their guns once more to restore order to a lawless land.
Yeah,
Sorry.
Yeah, that's right. And the film, it culminates. It's actually funny. Like every review, every synopsis says it culminates in the iconic OK Corral. I was like, that's like at the end of Act 2. It doesn't. It's like the beginning of Act 2.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I think that's why I was ignoring that part. I was like, wait a minute, but it really doesn't, though. We're totally keeping this in.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, there's very little editing that goes in.
Yeah. You know, we just roll with it. It's fine.
Yeah, and so the film, it explores themes of justice, loyalty, and vengeance amidst the lawlessness of the Old West. And this is one of Val Kilmer's portrayal as Doc Holliday is a complete and total standout, adding depth and complexity to the film. Iconic. Matter of fact, I'm your Huckleberry. Val says that line in several movies since then, but in different languages. Oh
my gosh, I never realized that.
Exactly. I saw that as a trivia. It became literally his signature tagline. And so go into IMDb and go into the trivia section, list all the movies. But one interesting piece, I was like, I wonder who wrote this movie. So Kevin Jarre, he wrote a couple things, but he was also one of the writers. I don't know how much involved, but he was one of the writers of Brendan Fraser, The Mummy, which is one of my absolute favorite movies of all time. So it's actually kind of cool. I was like, this guy did something else. He was the original.
All the quippy lines.
Exactly. He was
the Mummy has lots of quippy lines too.
Yeah, he was the original director for Tombstone as well. But unfortunately, a month in, he was fired. And his script was radically changed. So who knows what was everything all at the end of the day. Exactly. So let's go ahead and talk some spoiler-free thoughts on the popcorn side. So those listening to us first time, we do a 3-tiered rating. We call it stale, fresh, or buttered and salty, the play on popcorn, how good the popcorn is. So, Maddie, how good was the popcorn in this film?
Oh, man. This one's nostalgic for me. And even on rewatchings, I always find it buttered and salted. It's definitely the most quotable Western. Very snappy, quotable writing. I think with 3D characters. And I think it is like borderline romanticism, but just enough realism for me. And I just think like the acting and the cinematography and the music really come together to make this probably one of the most beloved Westerns and a very iconic one.
Yeah. So I went with fresh on this one. The chemistry between the male actors was great. The action, absolutely. Fun, again, very, very quotable. The quote unquote love story detracts from the story completely. And I could not root for what was basically got started off as an illicit affair. So I just couldn't root for that. I will say I'm going back and forth. I haven't figured out. We were talking about this before. I was kind of underwhelmed at the end of the day. I can't put my finger on all this stuff. I think some of it's just the overall editing, but really the chemistry between the male leads really carries this through and ends up in that fresh category. So moving on to our beginner theology thoughts is we're looking at if we have a cup of soda, is it diluted? We still got that carbonation, or is this cup runneth over?
Yeah. I definitely thought that it's carbonated. Um, it's got good themes in there, but it is kind of a simple story. It's a reluctant hero story where good and evil are kind of black and white. It touches on themes of justice and lawlessness. The kind of the wicked versus the righteous. So like there are definitely themes you could pick up from that. I don't think it definitely goes as deep as it could, but I think maybe that's why it appeals to a wider audience. People like a simple, good guys versus bad guys story.
Yeah, so I went with carbonated as well. I'm kind of on the border with it because at the end of the day, I was like, it's got a lot of, it's almost like shotgunning. It's got a lot of like different themes, but I don't think it really explored a lot of them. Even the love story, which I think is the weakest part in the entire movie, it didn't really even explore that as much. And so so definitely carbonated because of the multiplicity of topics you could talk about. I definitely see this as a Book of Judges type of story. God using morally compromised men to enact a reckoning upon wicked men and God's enemies. So let's go ahead and we're going to drop our spoiler warning at this point. And for this over 25-year, almost 30-year movie, and discuss our spoiler-free thoughts on Tombstone. All right, and there's the popcorn sound. And so, Maddie, you thought it was buttered and salted. Why is that? And were there things you liked, didn't like? What were some of those standout moments for you?
Again, I kind of agree with you. This movie is definitely like a mixed bag in some ways, but like it's still like in my top 5 westerns. I could probably recite this movie from beginning to end. Just memorable dialogue that really helped define the characters. I noticed that lately in modern movies, like all the characters talk the same. I don't know, something weird I've noticed, and like, but watching this, I feel like every character definitely has a distinct way of speaking, not just the accent, but like again the things they say, how they say it, and I think that is good writing. My favorite scene in this movie is probably the scene at the Orient. The confrontation, the meet. I think it's their first meeting too between Ringo and Doc Holliday, and it's just so tense and iconic. And
should I hate him? You don't even know him.
You don't even know him.
What?
You don't even
he's
know him.
He's a learned man. Now I really hate him.
Yeah. Again, it's just like that's why we love it. It's like it's just so good. And watching it this time, I just noticed almost every important character to the movie is in that scene, and they're just behaving the way that it is their character. Got Johnny and Doc as the main, dynamite. Doc's playing with dynamite like always. Wyatt's ready with a shotgun under the table. Josephine is bemused at the spectacle. Behan is a little nervous, but smiling. And then Morgan's kind of just there trying to see what Wyatt's doing.
Yeah.
And then Frank is actually dutifully trying to like ease the tension, and then Ike the fool, and then Bill who's this leader but like not the real threat, because we know that's Ringo. And I think just scenes like that, when you can show that, again, it's show don't tell, it just really solidifies the story. It's it's not just a throwaway scene. And there are a ton of other things that I could talk about this movie for a while. The gunfight scene, or the famous duel between Ringo and Doc. But I did want to kind of address. I want to be a little picky here because we are film critics here. And like you said, as good as this movie is in Act 1 and Act 2, it's as bad in Act 3. Like, I don't know what happened. It just kind of falls apart at the end, you know? And again, like, the summaries say, like, the culmination at the gunfight. And it's like, no, that's at the end of Act 2. And then there's whole other act of just, like, stuff happening. And again, and then they kind of wrap up the love story, but not really. And yeah, it's just kind of weird. And it's just like, I guess the writers just put too much effort into, you know, the first part of the movie, and they just got a little lazy on the last part, because the climax was too early. Again, I think it should have climaxed at the gunfight at OK Corral. And then that tension and that action just like dissipated after that.
Yeah, you're right. The tension, that's a great word. The tension ended after that, particularly after, when the brother gets killed. From that point on, it's basically just like montages for the rest of the movie. For the rest of the movie, it's like after even the scene where he kills Bill. That's kind of like anticlimactic. It's interesting. Where it's just like, no, he gets up in the river and they're shooting at him and he can't show him, and he kills him. But then it's kind of like, and it's done. And it's like, well, it was great, but it was kind of anticlimactic. It was like all the tension went out of the movie after the OK Corral. Yeah, you're right about that. It's a great way to say that.
Again, they just kind of mixed up, their story a little bit, I feel like. So, but again, and I think we were talking a little bit, before we started rolling about, I don't think anybody likes Josephine in this. I have never met a single person who's watched this movie and been like, oh yeah, like she's worth it. It's like, she's the most annoying character in this movie. I really don't like her. And like, I hate to say that because she's one of the most prominent women in the movie. Yeah. But yeah, it's like, I didn't understand her appeal at all. So I don't know. She just seems so worldly and girlish and frivolous. And it just, it seemed weird to put her in this movie, which seems like a pretty serious, like if you removed her from the movie, it probably would be like, a much more solid movie, and that whole storyline just take that
history out. The history buffs would be like, well, he actually had a mistress on the side and stuff like that, but we'd be like, well,
let her
that's
just
okay,
be a mistress on the side
because it's a better movie.
Yeah,
this is a better movie.
So, but I still love this movie. Everything about it is pretty amazing. Again, simple story, but driven by the cast and, the cinematography and the direction and the music. I think the music is really good too. So, and that's kind of what makes it a classic,
Excellent. Yeah. So for me, again, thought it was fresh. Again, very, very quotable. You've got, I'm your Huckleberry. You've got, well, bye. Who's like, bye. I have two guns, one for each of you. And then it's like some of the other ones I had forgotten about. It's like, why, Ike? What do you mean? Maybe poker's not your game, Ike. I know. Let's have a spelling contest.
That is, that's like Doc being so witty and like
the way he
smart
could
ass.
cut. It's like he was just as deadly with his tongue as he was with his pistol.
Yes,
yeah.
He was quick on the draw.
Exactly. It's like, why, Ed? Does this mean we're not friends anymore? Ed, if I thought you weren't my friend, I just don't think I could bear it. It's just like, what a
too much.
JA. Yeah. But wonderful character. Again, incredibly quotable. We've already talked about it. You talked about it. The love story is weak in this. From the beginning, I didn't get it, understand it. I did not see any chemistry between Russell and Delaney. I didn't see any chemistry. And again, it's like from the Christian perspective too, it's like seeing that, it's like, well, I can't even root for this story. Like if they had chemistry, I still want to be able to root for it as the Christian, because it's your Christian duty to even care for your ailing wife, even if she's, a drug addict. She's still your wife. But I don't think that part of the story was compelling or well done. Some of the strengths, again, that the action was great. The tension and I said especially the pre-OK Corral scenes, they were tense. Like
Yeah.
before Wyatt picks back up the weapon again, is like, all right, I'll go ahead and do this and help my brothers out. Before the good men decide to actually take action, that tension was great. But after that scene, it just kind of started to fall off.
Yeah.
The Cowboys at that point in the early parts, they're still feeling out the Earps, and the Earps aren't quite ready to be involved in the level that they'll be involved. And so that created a lot of tense moments because you had these powerful figures that the Cowboys knew we didn't want to actually push them too far. And so then when it eventually got to that, I think it was great. The chemistry between Russell and Kilmer, I mean, that's just, it's fantastic.
It's better than him and Josephine.
Exactly. It carries the entire film. Honestly, like their chemistry, they're playing off each other. The movie is really about them to the point where it actually detracts from all of the other characters. Literally.
Yeah.
Like they could have made a movie and not included either of his brothers, and this movie would still have been just as good. Again, not
and I think
historically
he had two
accurate,
more brothers, according to the history.
Oh, he did? Okay, yeah.
I think there were 4 brothers.
Yeah. And so it's just a bunch of great stuff out of this. Again, when I watched it, I probably hadn't seen this in over 25 years. And so watching it again now as an adult and thinking through it and going, hey, what I'm going to talk about, I was like, I came out a little underwhelmed than I thought I would be. And so I do wonder sometimes and about the whole nostalgia stuff. It was like, was this movie actually fantastic in the or was it just fantastic for the 90s? And we've just been watching it for 30 years and go, hey, this is awesome. This is great. I think some of it is just me just kind of watching it and maybe not in the right headspace at the time, but I was somewhat underwhelmed overall. But again, I think particularly the chemistry, the quotes, some of the action beats is what raises this beyond the poor elements that I don't think were done very well. But since we're kind of talking about this, and I wanted to talk about a little bit, is this actually representative of the Old West? Or is this kind of more romanticizing what it was like back then? And honestly, putting someone like a Wyatt Earp in a positive light that maybe isn't quite as deserved as his personal autobiography would want you to believe.
Yeah, no, that is funny they mentioned that, because I did watch the History Buffs video on this, and if you guys haven't watched any of History Buffs YouTube videos, they're really great. So he basically looks at movies and sees how historically ranks kind of how historically accurate they are. And he'll, kind of say whether he liked it or not, even if it was historically inaccurate or whatever. And this is one of those movies where he was like, it's mostly accurate. He's like, but it's very kind of one-sided. And they condense a lot of the timeline, but that pretty much every historical movie does that. And it does romanticize things a bit, definitely on the historic figures that we're seeing. According to him and doing some quick, Google research, the real Wyatt Earp was a little more gray than black and white. And, that's just being human. Some historians are skeptical of his, that burning desire for justice. And really, he might have done some shady deals with Behan, the sheriff, with some of the silver miners for political gain, because he did run for political office. And also there's histories where he was either a pimp or an enforcer at a brothel for a while. So not exactly the stand-up guy that we think of when we think of Wyatt Earp.
Yeah, so that's one of the things granted, I just read kind of like the Wikipedia and stuff like that. I couldn't tell if he had 3 wives at one point, but
they all died, except for Josephine. So he had 2 wives, and they both died, I think, within a year of being married to him, which is both of them. Yeah,
and so Well, when you kind of have a little bit more sympathy for the wife we see in this film when
Yeah.
you find out that she worked at a brothel. And that's
Yeah.
kind of where they met.
Yeah. And that was true,
so,
according to them,
yeah.
that was true.
And so that's kind of one of those interesting things where it's like, oh yeah, I have a little bit more sympathy for her being a drug addict at the end of the day. And so it definitely did take that romantic view of the old wild West and not telling that whole story, trying to gloss it over. It's almost like it's the it'd be like how a Christian would tell the story of the Book of Judges. It's gloss of the Veggie Tales. I'll say the Veggie Tales version of the Book of Judges,
the Veggie Tales version.
Type of stuff. Where it's like, oh, we're not going to tell you the nitty gritty stuff that would make these characters have moral ambiguity because we don't know how to actually tell that type of story. This movie came out a year after Unforgiven, and that one tells a much darker and I say probably truer to life story of what actually was going on in the West and stuff. Again, a lot of morally compromised people in that film as well, and meant to be a little bit more of a, I guess you would say maybe a deconstruction at the time, but realistically, honestly, probably a more true to life type of thing. It's a deconstruction from the high watermark of the the
so
paragons
more like
of virtue,
a neo-noir Western.
Well, it's more of a response to the ending of the John Wayne era of Westerns, where all the main characters, lead characters, were white hats. You had the white hats and the black hats. Very simple. And Unforgiven comes along and goes, no, we'll tell something a little bit more.
Yeah.
And Tombstone kind of lands a little bit in that middle of they're going to shave off some of the rough edges. They're not going to mention that he's, a potential pimp or an enforcer, that his wife is from a brothel, and they actually cut out a sex scene in the film that takes place before that would have actually been very clear that he had an actual affair, not just an emotional affair. It would have happened shortly after their horse ride or something like that. Before
that makes sense. Yeah.
But with that, we'll go ahead and we'll talk about some promo stuff and then drop our ads. And so we encourage you to like, share, subscribe. If you want to hear more, follow us obviously on all the socials, Facebook, Instagram, Discord. Help support us by rating and reviewing on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen. And lastly, you can support us financially on Patreon. Becoming a patron saint, just a few dollars a month, gives you special access to a whole host of benefits. We have an exclusive Facebook group. We have a special channel in the Discord. And you get to vote on future episodes. This actually was a Patreon supported and nominated and voted for episode. We just did Val Kilmer month, and it in the last minute, literally an hour to go, it pulled ahead of Batman Forever. So
Miles would be so disappointed. That's our Miles reference.
Exactly. The people spoke. The people spoke. And for our premium seating members, you actually get special extended editions of our In the Lobby podcast series, which are great episodes. We're actually going back through the last year of In the Lobby episodes and releasing them out to the public, get that broader conversation out there. So nice. With that, we'll go ahead and drop our ads, and we'll be back to cover Tombstone.
Cinemagog, The Marvelous Era. James Harleman here, the Cinema Guy, announcing the sequel to my first book on film and faith. Let's face it, entertainment has changed dramatically since the first book published in 2012, and comic book characters and franchises are everywhere, so I decided to set my sights on superheroes and examine the evolution of Hollywood in this follow-up to the first Cinemagog book. For example, what does Loki tell us about culture's view of God? Why does the Marvel Cinematic Universe and the Infinity Saga continually align with biblical themes? In the Marvelous Era, I review each film and show not only how the individual movies express gospel parallels, but each phase essentially reveals a multi-point sermon. I also explore DC, Star Wars, the Monsterverse, and more. Without compromising scriptural truth, we can sift these stories and discover how we might reject, receive, and redeem ideas for personal reflection and Christian conversation. Also, has Hollywood's messaging gotten worse? The book explores ways these marvelous mythologies correspond with conversion, Christian living, church history, and Reformation, but I do also highlight what has been the entertainment industry's darker, indoctrinating decade, as well as toxic fandom and the dangers of immersion in pop culture that just might drown us spiritually if we're not careful. So suit up, assemble, and join me on a journey to the Infinity Saga and beyond. Cinemagogue, the Marvel Us Era. Now available on Amazon.com in paperback, hardcover, and Kindle editions. Hey, this is James, and if you're listening to Popcorn Theology, it's because you're interested in movies, or theology, or best of all, both. And that probably means you're our kind of people, sharing things in common with our community, and maybe sharing common interests our listeners and viewers would be interested in as well. So why not partner with us and advertise your business or ministry right here on Popcorn Theology? We're looking for great, like-minded sponsors and offer reasonable rates with a variety of formats to get your message out. Remember, our fans aren't mindless consumers, so they'll give you thoughtful consideration. That's a big part of what we're all about. So for more information on advertising with us, contact info@popcorntheology.com.
And we are back. And that means it's time to pour and sample the more spiritual aspects of this film and its narrative. So let's shift gears and discuss the theological themes found in Tombstone. So Maddie, what was the main theme or one of the main themes that you want to talk about tonight?
Yeah, I was kind of difficult to pick one for that because again, it could have gone multiple ways. I was kind of looking at justice versus lawlessness and biblical justice and what that looks like, but I actually ended up on brothers and friends, and mostly friendship. Because again, we kind of discussed in our popcorn section that chemistry between, Kurt and Val, and, it's Doc and Wyatt. And that's kind of a dynamic, famous duo, Wyatt Earp and Doc Holliday. And I just kind of realized that their friendship is kind of the grounds on which this movie stands. And I kind of wanted to explore the juxtaposition of, the cowboy gang members, to Wyatt and Doc, that difference between just companions and what true friendship and biblical friendship looks like. And the verse that came to mind, of course, is a man of many companions may come to ruin, but there is a friend who sticks closer than a brother. And that's Proverbs 18:24. And that literally directly kind of ties into that quote from the movie. It's kind of right before that creek scene, I think, is when this line is. And it's Turkey Creek Jack Johnson talking to Doc, and Doc, you ought to be in bed. What the hell are you doing this for anyway? And Doc says, Wyatt Earp is my friend. And Turkey Jackie's like, well, hell, I got lots of friends. And Doc just says, I don't.
Yeah.
And that's the basis. Yeah. And that's just the basis of this movie. They are true friends. I mean, their friendship is, it's what holds this whole thing together. So there are a lot of relationships kind of thrown in this film. You've got actual brothers, to Wyatt, and you've got wives and lovers kind of. But again, that main relationship is between Wyatt and Doc. And their friendship is what invests us. And I think that's why that B story, love story feels so misplaced, because, it's actually Doc and Wyatt are the real love story, but not in that way. It's not gay. Okay.
Don't
read gay
it,
into
people.
it. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Don't do that. In this movie, if there's no Doc Holliday, there's no Wyatt Earp, and vice versa. Together they are a force to be reckoned with. And why is that? It's because they give each other what they need. And that's what Christians should do. It's like iron sharpening iron. It's like David and Jonathan. That was the duo I thought of from the Bible, and Jonathan recognizes David's authority and supports him in that. And David loves and appreciates Jonathan's help and support and his willingness to go against his own family and everything to be closer than a brother for him. And that's kind of how Doc and Wyatt interact. Jonathan gives David his robe at one point in 1 Samuel 18, and his robe, his armor, his sword, and his bow, and his belt, and I just got, again, you have my bow, and Doc says, you have my gun. And we all yearn, for this kind of support and loyalty from our peers, but we don't get it very often, which is why I think that verse, again, you can have many companions, but, a true friend is hard to find. Kind of like how the Cowboys are, again, we see the Cowboys, in juxtaposition to this, and there's a lot of them, and they're all part of this kind of family. And a gang is kind of like a family in a sense. You have this sense of belonging, but they're not true friends. Bad company ruins good morals. Another good verse. But again, the main difference, at least in this film, we're not looking at the true history of it right now. We're romanticizing it. Is that, but in this movie, and these characters, I should say, the Cowboys are pursuing wickedness, and Wyatt and Earp are pursuing righteousness as best they can in a corrupt world against all odds. And I don't know, I just think that really speaks to the power of a good friendship, where just a few men can stand up to many because they strengthen each other. And the way they strengthen each other is, Doc is literally dying. He's got tuberculosis. And most of the time, he's kind of just living in this hedonistic lifestyle, eat, drink, and be merry, tomorrow I die. But Wyatt kind of inspires him for something better suited to his talents, and just kind of a higher road. If anyone had an excuse to not do something, I feel like it would be Doc.
Yeah.
And it's not necessarily that he believes everything Wyatt does, like in earnest, but yet he supports him. He is literally willing to die for Wyatt. And Doc kind of pushes Wyatt in a way. He pushes him to not turn back, to actually follow through on his actions even when he balks, because Wyatt didn't want to get involved at first. Doc didn't really care one way or the other. But once Wyatt is convinced that he must intervene and do something, Doc is right there. He's not just showing up, but he's encouraging him on this path. His convictions are to trust Wyatt's convictions, because he is the leader. Again, kind of that Jonathan and David dynamic. Yeah. He knows that Wyatt is the leader, and he's going to support him in that. And I feel like as Christians, we need people like Wyatt to help lead us on better paths and those higher ambitions. And we also need friends in our life like Doc who keep us on those paths and reassure us that we are going the right way, basically. I think one thing that the world gets wrong nowadays is that, you don't just affirm everything that your friend does. Biblical friendship is not affirmation. You're not an ally in everything that they do. And I will say that Wyatt doesn't always do the right thing. Like, he doesn't really call out Doc's hedonism. Like, he doesn't call it out directly. He inspires him by his actions, but he doesn't admonish him. And I think that's something you should do as a true friend. A biblical friend would do that. But again, like, we're looking at these characters in the context of the movie, and I don't think they're really Christians in this movie, obviously.
No.
But as Christians, we have Proverbs 27:6, faithful are the wounds of a friend. And that's a very powerful verse. Again, you have to be able to take admonition, take that and learn, from your friends. So, but anyway, I just, while Wyatt and Doc have this really good and faithful on-screen friendship, it does kind of pale in comparison to what, like, true Christian friendship looks like. But I don't know, I was just wondering, like, I feel like I definitely know people who I've met who, again, like, don't believe in God, yet they are kind of inspired by, like, your convictions. Do you have anything like that? Or what do you think? How are friendships mostly portrayed in movies, I feel like, nowadays?
Yeah, so most of them are portrayed in the, again, well, you said that affirmation standpoint of, hey, my true friend or my true family is those who go along with what I want to do. There's no obligations placed upon me towards my friends. My friends, all obligations are towards me. It's not reciprocal.
Yeah.
And so, as you were talking, I was actually thinking through. It's actually from Ecclesiastes. I thought it was Proverbs, and they're written by the same guy, so honest mistake. It's like, but it says, if they fall, it's talking about it's better that two people go together. So if they fall, the one will lift up his fellow. But woe to him who is alone when he falls, for he has not yet another to help him up. And a couple of verses down the road is talking about the one may be overpowered, two can defend themselves, and a cord of 3 strands is not quickly broken. And that's what the Bible talks about friendship. And it's kind of interesting. Like, a lot of us, like, we always go to David and Jonathan, rightfully so, is talking about friendship. But it's this interesting thing where the Bible has a lot to talk about friendship. Christ himself says, yeah, to these guys, to the Pharisees, Sadducees, all those out there, I speak in parables and speak in riddles. But to you guys are friends. I talk to you now as friends. And there's something about it. As someone who personally, I don't have a ton of friends. I have some really, really close personal friends, but I don't have like this plethora of friends that I've come to realize that the people who have a wedding party of 25, I realize how shallow almost all of those relationships are. And I'm sure you've seen as a wedding photographer how many times
that's literally
you're like,
my nightmare.
Exactly.
You're
like
bridal party.
Yeah, it's like, how about I just get a picture of you and the maid of honor, because you're probably not going to know most of these girls 2 years from now. And it's this easy exchange of friendships a lot of times that happen. And it's kind of one of those where this a little bit in my reject section, I talk about how quickly we break our marriage bonds. Simultaneously, we break our friendship bonds like simple, like easy. We as soon as we find out someone voted slightly different than us, we don't even hear them out why. It's just, oh no, we're done. We're done. You're a MAGA, or you're a Democrat, you're a whatever. We just are done with them, and there's no maintaining of a friendship, even though you've known the person for 8 years. You say one thing that they don't agree with, and it ends up ending the relationship. And it's like, no, it's like, let's actually keep our friendships a little bit longer. Let's be like a Wyatt and a Holliday, where Wyatt can write a book called My Friend Doc Holliday. I think that Doc Holliday, my friend, or whatever. End scene where he sees the book, and it's great. Let's be that type of friends where we call each other out in private, but we have each other's back in public 100%. Whereas like, no, I will not. Matter of fact, it's funny enough. I forget what quote you just said. It's like from the movie where he said, oh heck, I've got a lot of friends. And you say, well, I don't. There was one of the people that went to prison for Nixon back in the day when he was out of prison. Someone asked him in an audience, seminar or whatever that he was giving, and said, "Why'd you do it? Why'd you lie?" And he said, "Well, he was my friend."
Yeah.
It's like, and it's like, and the entire room, like, it's not that they accepted it, but the entire room went, "I get it. And I wish I had a friend that was willing to go to prison for me." Exactly. And again, and you can get that. You should, I should say, get that in the Christian community, that we should be ready to bear one another's burdens and work things out and be true friends where, we hold each other accountable in private, and we have your back out in public. And that goes both ways. That means
Yeah.
not always being a Doc Holliday and getting yourself into trouble, like the ad-libbed wink at the OK Corral that sets everything.
Yeah,
that sets
yeah.
the shooting off. It's like, so it works both ways. Don't start fights just because you know you've got a Wyatt behind you that's going to back your play.
Yeah.
Yeah. Very
Yep.
cool. So, one of the themes that I had
What are
that
your
I want to
thoughts?
talk about is that it's not vengeance; it's a reckoning, and I liked that attitude. So the movie starts at the Mexican church, and the cowboys show up and they kill the groom, then they kill the bride, they kill a whole bunch of people, and the priest quoted from Revelation. And Johnny Ringo says Revelations, which is not Revelations, it's Revelation. And
like Illinois
it's Revelation. Exactly. And it's Revelation 6:8. And it's a slightly long passage. I'll read the whole thing. But the context of this, and I've pointed this out to several people before, is the quote unquote 4 horsemen of the apocalypse are actually good guys. They're not bad guys. So almost all Hollywood media gets it completely wrong. These are actually good guys who are being sent out by Christ to basically fulfill Christ's reckoning at what it is. And so I'll start in verse 8. Said, and I looked, and behold, a pale horse, and his name that sat on him was Death, and hell followed with him. And the power was given unto him over a fourth of the part of the earth to kill with sword, and with hunger, and with death, and with the beasts of the earth. And when he had opened the 5th seal, I saw under the altar the souls of them that were slain for the word of God and for the testimony which they held. And they cried with a loud voice, saying, How long, O Lord, holy and true, dost thou not judge and avenge our blood on them that dwell on the earth? And white robes were given unto every one of them, and it was said unto them that they should rest for a little season, until their fellow servants also and their brethren that should be killed as they were should be fulfilled. And I beheld when he had opened the 6th seal. Again, the he who's opening these seals is Christ. Christ is the one opening these seals. Satan's not in charge in the book of Revelation, just in case people have never actually studied it before. It is Christ who's doing all of these things. And so Christ opens the 6th seal, and lo, there was a great earthquake, and the sun became black as sackcloth of hair, and the moon became as blood. And the stars of heaven fell unto the earth, even as a fig tree casteth her untimely figs when she is shaken of a mighty wind. And the heavens departed as a scroll when it was rolled together, and every mountain and island were moved out of their places. And the kings of the earth, and the great men, and the rich men, and the chief captains, and the mighty men, and every bondman, and every free man, hid themselves in the dens and the rocks of the mountains, and said to the mountains and the rocks, Fall on us, and hide us from the face of him that sitteth on the throne and the wrath of the Lamb. For the great day of his wrath is come, and who shall be able to stand? And again, that it's analogous. It's not the same. But Earp's ride with his immortals is analogous to Christ's coming judgment in this way. It's not revenge, it's a reckoning. The cowboys aren't being pursued by Wyatt because they murdered his brother and tried to kill his wife and his other brother. They are being pursued by Wyatt because the time of their reckoning is at hand. They have sown, and Wyatt is the scythe of God's justice. And so that's what the cool thing, that Doc understood that. He was like, Wyatt Earp's just kind of this instrument being utilized at this point. All of these guys had it coming. Every single one of them had it coming. But unlike Christ and Yeah, but unlike Christ, Earp, his brothers, Doc, and all of his immortals, they're not innocent men. They are guilty of many sins and many crimes themselves, as we talked about. The true
Probably.
story, the part of the true story. But that doesn't mean that they're useless or you should just throw out their story.
Yeah. Mhm.
They're more akin to the judges from the Old Testament. In the book of Judges, the Israelites had failed to basically protect the promised land. There was no king in the land that was maintaining law and order, and the system of elders were falling down on their duty. So every man was basically doing what was right in his own eyes, which caused God to actually curse them. If you read Deuteronomy 28, God lists all the blessings and then every single one of the curses. And that's what the book of Judges is showing, is all of God's curses coming upon them, and they get overrun by their enemies. But God had mercy on them, and he would raise up judges to judge the people, but also to judge the evildoers. And so all of these judges, every single one of them, are not people to emulate. Even someone like Gideon, we're like, oh, cool, let's go ahead and, Gideon and his mighty men. This is great. You read how Gideon's the end of Gideon's story. You go, oh, this was a morally compromised man. But they were all used to crush the enemies of God's people. Samson, being the most popular judge, actually goes very much in hand with Earp's real life exploits. Mary's, I think she was a prostitute or something like that. The OG. I was going to say the OG Jezebel, but that's actually a different one. But so it was like a lot of it actually parallels, but it was used. Samson, morally compromised person, very morally compromised, but used very mightily by God. Same thing with Wyatt, incredibly morally compromised. He had some of his own real life, and in this film had some of his own reasons why he was doing the stuff. But the time of judgment for the Cowboys was at hand, and Wyatt just happened to be the instrument at that point. And so again, Earp and company, they were not moral paragons, in the same way how the judges weren't, but they were instruments that environment needed at that time. And it's a good reminder, though, because for true justice to actually come about, it does require a morally uncompromised person. And that's the thing about Christ, is he is perfect and he has uncompromised justice.
Yeah.
But he's also even more than that, because he offers a way out where the devil tells us that, hey, you've done evil. You've sold, using the motif from the movie, you took the Faustian bargain. You took the Faustian bargain. You sold your soul to me. You are mine now. And that's one of Ringo's problems. He's like, I already did it. I already sold my soul. And Christ says, well, the wages of your sin is death. Like, everyone knows it. That's the reckoning that's coming for every single one of these cowboys. Or you could be like the three cowboys who turned away. And and you could look at that. It says, Romans 6 says, for the wages of sin is death, but the gift of God is eternal life through Jesus Christ our Lord. It's that turning away from the cowboy lifestyle to a law administrator. I will say they turned from their wicked ways of cowboyism to become deputy marshals and dispensing justice upon the wicked, which happened to be people who were living their previous life. And that's one of the things Paul says, is like, such were some of you. You were murderers, you were thieves, you were idolaters, you were homosexuals, you were all these things. Such were some of you, but God has and it talks about from that point on. So that was my thing. It is a reckoning. It's not vengeance. And there's a huge key there that vengeance does belong to the Lord, but it's also a deserved time, and he saves it up so that it falls into that category of reckoning of going, all right, now's the time that I will step out and administer my perfect justice.
Yeah, I think that was a really important point to bring up, that as you were talking, I was realizing again all these other like movies and TV shows that I'm thinking of where again it's like the devil's in charge and he's the one opening these seals. I remember in Supernatural that was like the deal, it's like, as if humans are so good, like we have to, they need to be given a second chance, which God gives us more than second chance. He gives us so many chances. We just studied the book of Revelation in a Bible study I was in, and it's like every single chapter, like God does some judgment and then still says, but you still have time to turn back to me. You still have time. You still have time until the very end when it's like, all right, that's it. Like, that's it. But he offers us so much mercy every single time. But again, just those other movies, again, with that false narrative. And this might actually be a go-to movie now that I might say, like, this is a very good, like, visual representation of, one of the passages of Revelation. Again, not like a full thing, but it is really good. And it is a very obvious one now that I'm thinking about it, because literally the movie starts with that quote.
Yep.
And with Ringo saying it even, which is interesting.
Yeah. Well, then Wyatt repeats it later.
Yeah. And then Wyatt says, and you tell him hell's coming with me. Like he is that, arbitrator, you being that instrument of God's justice in that moment.
I'm surprised they didn't have him riding on a white horse. I actually was somewhat disappointed. I was somewhat disappointed because at one point there's 4 of them all in a row,
and he's not a white horse. Yeah.
I was like, one was in a white outfit, but I was like, that doesn't count.
Yeah. No, that would have been like, that I don't know. Maybe
on the nose.
They probably thought that. They probably were like, that's a little too on the nose. We can't do that. But it would have been a very good visual cue, maybe. In case you didn't get it already, like.
Yeah. This is the movie hitting you over the head, saying he is the angel of. Yeah, he's the. Angel of death, or not angel of death, but whatever. Yeah. Horseman of death. Yeah.
Horseman of death.
So let's move into our lightning round. All right. And so this is the section where we, before we wrap up, we discuss some themes that we can, lightning round, sift and receive, reject, and redeem. So what are some ideas that we can thoughtfully reject from this film?
Yeah, well, my favorite character in this, Josephine.
Let's say any scene she's in, just reject it. Just
basically, yes, honestly. Like, watch this movie and just reject everything Josephine does, because, again, one of the more annoying, points that she makes is this room service idea. I want to live life with room service. Basically to live only, to live a life of fun, live a life of hedonism. But like, again, it's so weird. To be completely fair, the movie doesn't actually promote this, but it likes to think it does. Yeah. And again, her scenes are all just so weird, because again, like, if you're actually paying attention and watching this movie, obviously, like, justice, law and order, and living that higher path, going on that higher path, obviously is more important than room service. And yet they're still trying to, like, say that. It's that third act that kind of just drills off. And definitely reject that, because the movie itself rejects it.
Yeah, well, honestly, you're right. It kind of wants to have its cake and eat it too, where it's like, it only temporarily rejects it. It's like, no, he had to go and do this reckoning type of thing, but now he's back. He's back. And then she's like, no, my family's rich. Which is actually not. I don't think that. I don't actually think that's true. Apparently, she actually had a really, really bad gambling habit in real life. So they actually didn't have a charmed life afterwards, like the movie says it is.
What?
But who would have thought that when you go against the God's created order, that you that it wouldn't all work out for you. Who would have thought
Who
that?
would have thought that? Not me.
But yeah, no, that's a good one to reject. That was one of the first ones. Oh, and I've seen that. I just rolled my eyes. I was like, I get it, but again, it's just that hedonistic type of thing of like, no responsibilities. Don't have to have any responsibilities in life. No one. I don't have to answer to anyone in this. So one of mine to reject again around the same topic is I would say be an oak. That was a thing where Doc says to him when they first see Josephine, and he goes, Wyatt, you are an oak. It's like, be an actual oak. It doesn't matter if your wife has an opium addiction and that does not absolve you from your marriage vows. In fact, it actually brings your marriage vows to the forefront, because when one falls, that's why another one's with them to pick them up. As Ecclesiastes says, that's the point of marriage vows, is that when someone is going through a terrible time, you're there for them. You don't abandon them. We've become a lot too, again, and it's like, there's been a lot of rejiggering of the roles when it comes to what a quote unquote abandonment has become in this. And a lot of churches have gone completely with the culture and gone, hey, this thing is abandonment now. Emotional abandonment. Oh, he abandoned me emotionally, but he didn't physically. He's still paying for all your bills. He's still doing all this, but it's emotional abandonment, or he's no longer the leader of the household. So that's abandonment in this way. And it's kind of one of those things, like, we've become too flippant with our vows. I mean, I talked about this with friendship. With all of our vows, we've become way too flippant with everything. And we don't always
really make vows anymore. To be honest.
Exactly. We think, because we don't want to be beholden to anything. Yeah. And so it's like, one, we become too flippant with the vows we do make, and then we don't even take other vows to begin with, because we don't want to be we don't want to be held to anything. I'm a commercial loan.
No commitment.
I'm a commercial loan officer. I do multi-million-dollar loans, and the amount of people that try to get out of a loan agreement because, like, well, it was worded this way or that way, or I actually didn't read the loan agreement. And I was like, well, that's why we had you sign it. That's why we had you do this type of stuff. Is people try to get away with everything, which is unfortunately why loan agreements are now 100 pages long, whereas 25, 30 years ago, they were about 10 pages long. But we're just too flippant, and we're always looking for the exception of the rule instead of, living by the rule. And so I only have, I'm not sure what you've got. I only actually had one real redeem. There's other stuff to talk about this, but this is our lightning round. But the thing that really hit me was just watching through particularly the first act, is good men must do good. Like, you cannot turn a blind eye to evil when you have the ability to end it. And it is the famous quote that a lot of people think is from the Bible, but it's not. It's like, the only thing necessary for the triumph of evil is for good men to do nothing. And that's from a political philosopher, Edmund Burke, from the 18th century. But the principle is there within Scripture. And it's like, James says, to him who knows to do good and does not do it, to him it is sin. And there's a whole bunch of different verses out there. The parable of the Good Samaritan can even be applied in certain cases. And there is wisdom in how you engage and stuff. That's why it's not an outright, hey, jump in and start slinging guns, as because at the same time, Proverbs says, a fool is one who enters a quarrel that is not his. And so there is wisdom to be had. But as the general rule, if you are a good man and you're in a position to do good, then do it. Don't neglect your responsibility. Yeah, exactly. And then the redeem part is have an actual morally upstanding life. Just because you're being called to be a judge doesn't mean you should act like the judges from the Bible.
Yeah, absolutely.
Excellent.
Let Christ be your example.
Exactly. He's more than he is. And I said this the other day at an event. It's like he is my example, but he is also more than an example.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
He's
I like
so
that.
much more than that, but he's not less. And I think we forget that sometimes, where we want to properly theologize everything, and we want to have this high Christology, we want to have all this, and we just know he's our savior, he's redeemer, he's all of these things. But he's also an example, and we should live like him. As much as we have pushed back on and kind of snickered at the "what would Jesus do" type of stuff, my father reinterpreted and said, no, instead of saying what would Jesus do, we should be saying, what would Jesus have me do?
Yeah.
And it's a different thing. It's like, yeah, he's our example, we follow in his footsteps, but he's left a moral code for us and laws for us to follow, and those, what he's done through the power of the Spirit, is actually attainable. We actually can follow those, because he's the one, the Spirit is living within us,
sent the helper,
and now we are so it's a great thing to be a Christian, because we have the perfect example, and he's given us the power to actually follow his example. And then when we fall down, which we will, he picks us back up. And he's the friend who stays, he's the true friend who stays closer than a brother. And he's that one who walks with you, that when you stumble, he picks you back up.
Amen.
All right. So until next time, keep engaging movies and media from a godly perspective. And remember, you are my Huckleberry.